Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeffrey Mishlove. This is part one of a three-part series with Dr. Chris H. Hardy on the infinite spiral staircase theory. Dr. Hardy is a psychological anthropologist and a systems theorist. She is the author of numerous books, including Cosmic DNA at the Origin, Networks of Meaning, and The Sacred Network. She has been a parapsychology researcher at the Psychophysical Research Laboratory at Princeton University. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome, Jeff.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for coming from so far away to be here.
Thank you also.
You began your work as a teenager, and it had to do with your own spiritual quest. You traveled throughout the world living like a sadhu, like a spiritual monk. And at that time, you began to open up chakras. You began to experience spiritual psychic visions that became the basis of your theoretical work. Can you describe what it was like for you as a teenager?
Well, I started to explore meditation when I was 18. And I had gone through the basic books of the Eastern religion, like the Vedanta philosophy. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten an idea of a kind of state that you could achieve on the aim of exploring your own consciousness and achieving high state. And I started teaching myself meditation, and I got very quickly into high state of consciousness, not very high, but a state of harmony with nature and with the world, because I had been writing poetry, and I had already a taste of those state of harmony with nature around me. So it was kind of easy to get into those state. And the focus was just different. It was my own inner consciousness. And then I wanted absolutely to go to India, but I had to finish my bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I was done, I just jumped and went with first going to India. That was my long-term aim since my teens. And so I was 21 at the time. Mm-hmm. And
many young people were migrating to India on a spiritual search in those days.
Well, it was the first year. It was, interestingly enough, it was the first year of the hippies on the road. You know, we were like in the hundreds. And so I after a stay with a Sufi master, where I got into even higher state of consciousness. After a few months, I took my little backpack, which was just a woven pack, and I went to India, and I started traveling with no money. I had left everything
Isn't
behind.
it the case that even before you went to India, you had other experiences in Europe, for example, at a monastery?
Yes, absolutely. When I was 19, I with my boyfriend of the time, we went to a monastery because we had heard that the monks were having very strong spiritual experiences. They were an Orthodox Celtic order of monks, but they were also very knowledgeable in all kind of lore, like the Tibetan culture and meditation, and they were making. And so when I got there, I had my first experience of what I called at the time a telepathic field.
A telepathic field.
Yes, because as soon as I was in the monastery and we were not talking with the monks, like after dinner or during the meals, when I was alone on all the monks, they were not so many, like there were 6 or 7 monks. Mm-hmm. And my boyfriend was going to be one of them. I had to leave him there. But it was like when everybody was around doing weaving work in the garden or whatever, yes. I would still be... It was like my mind was bothered by the voices of the thoughts of the monks. Mm-hmm. And it was bothering me so much because I am... a person who likes to be in inner states and be by myself in my mind. And so I started trying to find a place where I could meditate and read and write, being alone in my mind. And I found a meditation rock. But when the next time, I guess it was in the afternoon, because I was going out of the monastery on a small path towards the rock I had found, which was absolutely perfect. And on that way, I was still, my mind was still clogged with the thoughts of the monks. And suddenly I made one more step, and it was absolutely abrupt. I was alone in my mind. So I found this so strange that I took a step back, and here they were again clogging my mind.
In other words, the telepathic field had something like a boundary.
Yeah, it had such a precise boundary that one step forward, I was alone in my mind. One step backward, all the minds of the monks were there. And yet, I could receive, on my rock, I could receive a telepathic thought that was sent to me. But it was not the same as the field, which was like, I would say, the boundary was about 150 yards from the monastery, from the main building. So when you were within that boundary, the thoughts of all the monks sort of overwhelmed you, but once you left a particular spatial location, then you experienced the solitude that you preferred. Yes, yes. And it's something that we have great difficulty to understand, but is that thought is also an energy. Consciousness, in fact, is an energy. And I give you another example, which was extremely speaking for itself, is that at one point in one of my travels, I went to California. And I had some friends there. I was staying at that place. And the woman was taking some courses of hypnosis. And she asked me to accompany her. And when I got there, the teacher decided that he was going to take me as a subject of experience for his other student to practice collective hypnosis on me. Okay. So I was lying down on the couch, and they were in a file, each one with his or her hands on the person in front of them. Yes. And all of them were giving their energy to the first one, who was having his hand above me and trying to hypnotize me. Oh. And what was very strange is that I was lying on the couch, absolutely ordinary state of consciousness, and they get in a line, they prepare themselves, and now the first one, okay, we go. And the first one is hypnotizing me. And all the other ones are giving their energy to the first one.
How interesting.
And suddenly, I hear an incredible silence. And I say, but what is this? Was there so much noise before? And it was just the noise of the people thinking by themselves, like... Yeah. And once they get all focused on the first one, absolute silence. So it is a mental silence, you know.
Now, you had other experiences in India. In particular, you talk about being with the sadhus on the beaches at Goa in India, where you also played music and went into trance states and experienced the telepathic, I think you call it the Telhar field, or the telepathic harmonious field, where people are all engaged in a similar state of consciousness at the same time.
Yes. The interesting thing is that when you are a group of people, there is a possibility to reach a state of collective consciousness which is totally harmonized. And it is the other facet of the telepathic field that I was experiencing in Brittany, in the monastery.
With the monks.
With the monks.
Uh-huh.
And this time, it was in the first experience I had it in Nasik, like you would say, a year and a half after the monastery.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to this sacred town, and I was going down the first day. I had found a place where to sleep. I was going down to the sacred part of the town, and suddenly it was the same thing, but in the other way around, is that I made a step on the way on this little street going down to the baths on the river, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, one more step, and I was in this absolutely unbelievable harmony field, because and all the Indian people inside the field, their eyes were totally open. It was like a field was so big, it was taking the whole quarter of town. That was a sacred part with hundreds of temples, you know, around the river with the baths, sacred baths.
Many sadhus and meditators.
Yes, and it was a sacred town, one of the 4 major sacred towns in India. And Nasik, it's near Bombay. And it was a field of harmony. So this time, because the ascetics are of a different culture, and they are so used to meditating all day long, all night long, even in their dreams.
They've been doing this for thousands of years in India.
In the same place, in this sacred town. So basically, they don't, you don't have this aspect of telepathic and disorder thoughts, you know, that was troubling me in Brittany.
Yes.
You have an absolutely silent and shared consciousness.
People, you know? These people, you might say they're in a state of samadhi.
Oh, practically. Yes. I would say, you know, there is such an enormous difference between, if you imagine, an ascetic, you know, he's meditating all day long. Even he has a yoga during his sleep, where he's constantly, like the Tibetans, they are constantly focused on the white light.
They've dedicated their entire life to this.
Yes. They left everything.
They live like beggars with no money, and you were doing the same. You were living that way without any money, just like them, with that single-minded focus. Yes,
I had been willing to go as far as I could in terms of understanding. I had the impression before I left, that I was going to die in a matter of 3 or 4 years, and I was trying to get the most, as far as I could go on the path of enlightenment, so to speak. So I had devised that if I was having an experience totally opposite to whatever I had lived already, I would go the farthest possible. And that meant having no money, because I had before, and being alone, because I had been protected by people, and being in a very faraway country, which had to be India, in my opinion. So I did that, and I left the money, and as soon as I was in India, whatever little money was left to me was stolen while I was meditating in a temple. It was just absolutely perfect. And then I stayed a year and a half, and then again I came back a year later.
So the sadhus in India, even though you were from a different culture and they are mostly male, and you were female. They accepted you as one of them.
No. You have Mataji sadhu. You have woman sadhu.
Oh.
Yes, it's a part of the culture.
Okay.
I mean, the sadhu, for the sadhu, you know, man or woman doesn't make any difference.
I see.
What is important for them is that you are on a quest and you are looking to understand something. You are on the path of self. Of knowing yourself, you know.
And in addition to deep meditative states, there were also trance dances and music. And
oh yes, in Goa, in the not at this time in the 70s. It was only we had some kind of parties playing music together, but they were mostly. Everybody was always in a meditative state. But later, yes, when I got back there again in the end of, just for the turn of the millennium, and then afterwards, then we had those trance dancing and with techno music, Goa trance music, and there it was another type of experience because we could be now 5,000 people in one dancing, you know, and we would still again reach a telar field, you know,
like a telepathic harmonious field of energy through the music.
Yes. And what was interesting in the trance dancing is that the first thing you do is, as a group of people, is to harmonize your bodies with the rhythm. So then you get into the rhythm, which is at the beginning very low quality, I would say. It's just very basic kind of beat, you know. And then if you are into a conducive kind of environment, and India is always a conducive environment, and the people who are attracted to India also, they have a specific psychology, and so basically the field, the quality of the energy of consciousness, which is shared in this field, is rising during the trance dance, and at one point you reach the level of harmony between everybody, where you get into a telar field, you know, which has very, very specific property in terms of space and time, in that, as we said earlier, it creates a kind of huge bubble, which for a psychic like me, you're able to see the bubble of energy. Like I had this experience with 4 people meditating in the mountains in Manali, and we reach a telar field. You know, suddenly we felt our minds were perfectly harmonized, like a fusion state between a few people, like 4 people in that case. And at the moment we reach a oneness state, and our minds were like one mind, at that moment I saw a torus of energy. It's like a donut of energy turning at incredible speed between our forehead and head chakras. And at the same moment, there was a huge bubble of, it was like creating a bubble, which was shiny, like a soap bubble, you know?
That you were able to visualize, and it encompassed all 4 of you, is that right?
It's not visualizing, it's perceiving. For me, it's a very, very stable perception, in the sense that as soon as my energy is kind of at a certain level, but if there is anybody who is at this level of energy, of being in sync with his own self, with a big S, you know, his own soul.
Ego?
No, not the ego, the higher self.
The higher self.
like the self in the sense of Carl Jung, like the inner high consciousness, which is creating those fields. This is at the level of the self that the field is created. Okay. So if there is anybody at this level, like meditating around me, immediately I am in sync with this level, and I can see, for example, the energy configuration of the field of the person meditating.
Now I think it's fair to say, had become quite an advanced meditator in terms of what are known as the chakras and the opening up of each chakra, including the highest of the chakras.
Yes, early so. But I must say that from the 70s, where, we were kind of reaching that state, like in Goa, a few hundred people that were in Goa, and then Manali, and Benares, and the sacred places in India. We were all, after a few months, we were all like the sadhus. We were all at the head chakras.
I see. And when you say we, I assume you're referring to other Europeans who were with you. Yes.
Because at that time, the people that were coming from any kind of country, at the time it was Americans, English people, some German people, rarely some rare Japanese people, and that were on French, of course, and we were all on a quest. We were not going to India for anything else than to learn from this very ancient culture.
And what you discovered is that this is a culture that was very knowledgeable and experienced in these the highest states of consciousness.
Of course, since millennia, it's a millennia-old culture. But what is extremely important, and that's why, as far as I'm concerned, I know that's why I knew I was going to find the answer in India. It's because their texts are extremely clear about their science of chakras and the states of consciousness, and they have devised a different paths of yoga. Some of them are in the Tibetan religion, of course, but they are the clearest culture, the Hindu and the Vedanta philosophy, on the Tibetan Buddhism. They are the clearest text to get information about state of consciousness on the chakra, while you have the chakra system in any Eastern religion.
And this is where you develop the concept of the telepathic harmonious field, which became the foundation for your work on the infinite spiral staircase theory. Did you find nothing equivalent in the Vedantic literature to the telepathic harmonious field?
Never. I have hardly found, and I believe that this is could be the root of a new science, because it's in itself it's a whole domain of experience with a very specific state where you see the energy of consciousness creating fields that are perceptible, and I have not seen this in any kind of ancient treatise, whether in esoterica, whether in Eastern religions. I have, for 10 years, 12 years, I've been only reading this before I got into science. And no, I have not seen any. I have seen only a slight suggestion of something that could be a collective state in a very ancient book on alchemy.
I see. And you also noticed, as I recall, that these telepathic harmonious fields were associated with certain temples and sacred sites?
Yes, definitely. It's like the Telar field is an imprinting of the energy of consciousness of the people who are living those fields, who are experiencing those fields, but a very specific property of this energy of consciousness, which I call semantic or sig energy, is that it is imprinting matter. So when you have a sacred object, you have an object that has been used in rituals, for example, or even as a decoration, but an object you love. And this object is constantly imprinted by this energy of consciousness, the sig energy of the persons or the people that are interacting with it.
When you say sig energy, I assume that you're referring to semantic energy, but also the word signify, we would say. It has meaning. Yes. The energy is not just a physical force, it embodies meaning.
Yes, that's the root of semantic. Yeah. Semantic in Greek, semantikos means that what has to do with meaning, creating meaning, meaning as a verb, as a dynamics.
And human beings, when they engage in various sacred rituals, sometimes over centuries, even millennia, they imprint objects and locations with their very high intentions. Yes. And this is something you could actually perceive.
Yes. Yes, you can, even all monuments, because of, can be, have a certain specific sig energy. So you have, for example, when I was young, I could see over Paris that there were rays of light above the buildings, not only the sacred building like the Cathedral Notre Dame, but also on the Tour Eiffel, on all kind of domes. And I would see this above people also. I can see this.
Even as a child?
No, I'm not talking. I woke up at 18 when I started meditation.
When you had this awakening.
I have practically only rare things I've been before that.
Well, Chris H. Hardy, thank you so much for sharing this half hour with me on telepathic harmonious fields.
Thank you, Jeff.
And thank you for being with us. And be sure to check your listings for parts 2 and parts 3 of this series of interviews on the infinite spiral staircase theory of Dr. Chris H. Hardy.